Hello, everybody. It's Mrs. Pound, and we are still talking about the oceans, part of God's great creation in chapter 4.2. And our topic for today are the ocean floors from section 424. So, our objectives for today's video are to describe ocean floor features and relate ocean floor features in the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. So the first feature we're going to talk about under the ocean is what's called the continental shelf. That is this flat area. You can see some just beyond South America here, up here around North America, off of Europe in these areas, a little bit off of Africa. This is a broad, relatively shallow underwater terrace that slopes outward from the shoreline. And you can see by this map that it does extend just off the continents and not very deep at all. Just beyond that, see this really steep part? That's called the continental slope. It's the steepest part of the continental incline located at the edge of the continental shelf. So right on that edge, that deep slope there, it looks like almost like a cliff, doesn't it? Then there is the continental rise. This is the base of the continental shelf. So right at the bottom of that cliff-like feature, that continental slope is the continental rise. And this is the region that marks the transition from the continental crust to the oceanic crust. So beyond that point, at the very bottom of all of these continental slopes at the continental rise marks where the ocean crust starts. Now, if you're listening to the video, I want you to draw a line underneath uh, this, the words here, the last words here, to show that this is the cutoff of the continental area. The next term we're going to talk about is part of the oceanic crust. So now those three features, the continental shelf, the continental slope and the continental rise are all part of what's called the continental margin. This is the part of Earth's surface beneath the ocean that is made of continental crust. So, underneath this definition, draw a line to show that the next term is not part of the continental crust, it's part of the oceanic crust. Now, beyond the continental shelf, you can have what are called abyssal plains. And these are a large, nearly flat region beyond the continental margin. So, this area here, okay, these areas down here are very flat. In fact, you could walk across them, and across their whole length, they might only be a difference of 1 meter in their height across. Um, those are the abyssal plains. You can also have seamounts. This is an underwater volcanic mountain that rises at least 1,000 meters above the abyssal plain. And you see a lot of these over here in the Pacific Ocean, definitely a few here, okay? They do, in fact, look like mountains coming up, and they're formed by volcanoes. A lot of them in the Pacific Ocean. So let's compare the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. The Atlantic Ocean is characterized by continental shelves that are wide and continual slopes that gradually drop to join vast underwater plains. So there are a lot more plain type areas underneath the Atlantic Ocean than there are in the Pacific Ocean. And we can see that there are plains here. Now, this is the mid ocean ridge, but on either side there are plains. Where if you look over here at the Pacific Ocean, you just don't see those plains so much. As you do in the Atlantic Ocean. And the Pacific Ocean is characterized by an irregular landscape with many mountain ranges and trenches. So, very irregular. We have, especially right here, we have a trench, right? Here we have wide continental shelves in the Atlantic Ocean, but over here we have trenches, and that continental shelf just pretty much immediately drops off on the edge of the continents here in the Pacific Ocean, and just lots of seamounts and irregularity. We do not see these vast plains like we do. In the Atlantic Ocean. So our objectives for today's video were to describe the ocean floor features and to relate the ocean floor features in the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. So don't forget your 5 questions, and I'll be back with more about the oceans.